Hey, everybody, Marcel Ernie Racing News. Today we're going to watch Trudeau lose it again, April 25th, 2024, guys. Announcing more of his propaganda, more in the limelight. He never stops using taxpayers' dollars to propaganda and to promote his business of being Prime Minister.
Nous allons maintenant commencer avec la période de questions. We will now start with the question and answer period. First question goes to Global News.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome everyone from Honda. Prime Minister, if you could, the deals for the subsidies that were used for VW and Stellantis to lure those companies to Ontario have been somewhat criticized, but now you're using tax credit. Is there more cost certainty for taxpayers with that? And do you see tax credits as sort of the pathway, and Premier Ford maybe could answer this as well, the pathway to other companies like, Toyota coming to Ontario, which has been rumored?
Over the past number of years, we've made, as a government, deliberate choices to build up the EV and clean manufacturing ecosystem across Ontario, but also across Canada. And in this, Premier Ford has been an outstanding partner, as evidenced by all the success we've had. When the United States brought in the IRA, it was also a response to what Canada had been able to do during the 4 years of an administration in the US that wasn't focused on building advanced manufacturing in the green economy. So the current administration had to catch up and put an awful lot of money on the table to draw in clean investment from around the world. We stood up to match that with production credits and investments that would be delivered when batteries and EVs rolled off the assembly lines, when they're created, because that's what the IRA required us. Extraordinary success they've had here. So as they came forward, we were able to use around the world are trying to throw money at different companies to try and draw in investment here, because yes, we have the critical minerals and the natural communities with strong social safety net with every other G7 country, privileged to invest in Canada, is because of Canadians themselves. Canadian workers who are ambitious, best educated.
You guys know that Trudeau turned down several countries for our natural gas that would have equated to the largest deal in history, the largest income in history for Canada. It would have essentially solved $200 billion of our debt over the next many years. What was it, $226 billion? He's turned down the biggest viable business for Canada to get us out of the debt. He's not interested in making money, guys. He's interested in bringing Canada down into a full-on depression.
OECD, hardworking and ready to these important countries in partnership in Ontario, like Premier Ford. Doug, I think you want to add to that?
Thank you. Well, I look at this as a long-term investment, and that goes for all $43 billion that was invested here in Ontario. This is generational investments that their families, their kids may be working here, and we've seen this grow. It's one of the number one industries and sectors right here in Ontario. But you look at the investment we have, the jobs Honda has trusted us with here, multiplied by 7. So it's roughly any auto job is 7 times the jobs that are being created here, no matter if it's the suppliers that are coming on board or...
Premier, if the courts had done what you'd wanted in 2021 and denied Umar Zamir bail, he would have been in jail while his wife raised a toddler and a newborn by herself for nearly 3 years in a new country. You didn't respect the court's decision when you denounced it on Twitter, but now that we have benefit of hindsight, do you still think that Mr. Zamir should have been kept in jail? And if not, what assurances can you give that the like-minded judges you're appointing won't deny bail to the next Umar Zamir?
Well, thank you for that, that comment, but I'll tell you, it's a very sad situation. And the whole situation is sad, and one of the information I had at the beginning, first-degree murder, I made my comment. But do you know what I find ironic? And he never mentioned Constable Northrop. He never mentioned about his wife Margaret taking care of their 3 kids and going to raise them without a father. That he won't go to their weddings. He won't be able to be with Margaret the rest of her life. Isn't it ironic you haven't mentioned that? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Classic Doug Ford.
Follow up?
There we go. To turn to something that's going on at the legislature, Sarah Jama is wearing a keffiyeh in the House and has been told to remove it or leave, and she is doing neither. And it's apparently becoming a bit of a boiling situation back at Queen's Park. You've said that you do not support this keffiyeh ban. What do you think should be done?
Well, again, the Speaker runs the legislature. I don't. That was his choice, and he's the one that runs the legislature.
Next question.
Hi, Barbara with iPolitics. My question is for the Prime Minister. As iPolitics reported earlier this week, the CBTU is warning that the under-construction Nexstar battery plant is ramping up its use of foreign workers despite the billions in government support being offered. They want your government to halt the flow of foreign workers to the plant and get Nexstar to the table to sign a new agreement guaranteeing jobs for Canadian tradespeople. So will you take those steps to address the CBTU's concerns? And considering the issues with Nexstar, do you have any assurance from Honda that something similar won't happen here?
Actually, the investments we're making, whether it's with Nexstar or here with Honda, it's all about creating great jobs for Canadian workers, and that's what is actually being delivered. I know the CBTU actually, more recently than what you said, put a statement on their website saying that they are working closely with Nexstar and Stellantis to make sure that there are good jobs for Canadians, as is part of the commitment that Stellantis and Nexstar have made. We're going to continue to be there, and I'll highlight that of the close to 2,000 workers on the construction in Windsor right now, there's only about 72 of them that are international workers because there's a certain amount of specialized equipment that needs training so Canadians can actually be doing the installing as well. Here in Honda, I know Honda's already working very closely with the CBTU to make sure that the construction of these new facilities is done in the right way.
Adrian Gobriel with CTV National News. My question's for anyone who can answer it clearly. When we're looking at the Honda EV battery plant, how many jobs directly in the plant will be created, and how much is the government paying for each of those jobs through the tax credits and the deal that is on the table?
There is a debate ongoing in politics right now, and the Conservative Party of Canada would have us not make this investment today. They stood against our Volkswagen investment in St. Thomas, Ontario. They decried the investment that we made with Stellantis in Windsor, and they continue to be against government stepping up to invest in good jobs of the future. It's a legitimate debate, but I think they're wrong. As the world is turning towards new ways of manufacturing cleaner products, clean vehicles, changing the way we build things, changing what we build, countries around the world are competing for investments. And we know that an investment today in Honda, as they build new facilities, new plants that are going to employ 1,000 new workers, that's not just creating jobs, great jobs for 1,000 new people around here. That's contributing to an ecosystem that'll involve parts suppliers. It'll involve communities with vibrant art scenes and strong main streets. It'll involve future generations of Canada building the kinds of solutions the world needs. Yes, there are politicians who sit back and say, no. We've got to balance the budget at all costs, even if it means not investing in Canadian workers and investing in the future. Well, I think they're wrong. And that's part of the choice Canadians get to make over the coming year and a half when we get to a federal election. Are we a confident country that invests in ourselves in our workers, in our future? Or do we sit back and say, okay, we'll let Canadians sort themselves out? I know people here in Alliston, but indeed people right across the country, are incredibly proud of Canada being a world leader in battery manufacturing supply chain. We beat out China for the first time anyone's ever passed in front of that, because Canada is making deliberate investments in the future. So I'm incredibly pleased to be able to be here with a progressive conservative like Doug Ford, who understands that investing in workers, investing in manufacturing, investing in the future of Ontario is how you build a strong economy for today and for the coming decades.
Wow, what a rant. What a rant, Trudeau. Holy smokes.
Well, I guess you have two choices. You don't invest, or you have confidence in the people of Ontario and companies like Honda to create jobs. If you're asking me a number, what do you put a price on 28,000 people being employed? Because if you round it off, 4,000, 4,200, 5,000 jobs times 7, there's 28,000 other people that are going to have spin-off jobs, opportunities to grow. Our great STEM graduates, the future of this province, are going to be able to come here, or the other auto investments around the province. Let me tell you something. In the last 5.5 years, we went from the previous government, previous government, chasing jobs out of this province to a tune of 300,000 to over 700,000 people bringing home better and bigger paychecks because of the policies, because of the partnerships that we've had at all three levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal partners, investing in the future. This is generational. This is decades and decades down the road. What price do you put on that? There is no price you can put on that, because we're investing into the people. The money is staying here in Ontario. It's not going overseas. It's not going down to the U.S.
What was the question again? Is how much are Canadian taxpayers funding this entire program? How much money is coming out of Torontonians' wallets to hire these people to pay for Honda's development, right?
Is staying right here in Ontario for decades and generations to come.
So just to be clear, no one's willing to answer the question specifically. How many jobs are being created, and what is the cost for the government deal?
If you're not going to listen to the answer of it saying 1,000 jobs created, then there's nothing we can do for you.
I just said the spin-off jobs. They said 4,200. I'm sure it's going to even get up probably to 5,000. Multiply that by 7. There's your answer. 28 to 35,000 jobs. Not today, not for tomorrow, but for decades to come.
Next question.
Trudeau is losing it. Oh, man. What was the question again? How much is it going to cost the taxpayers? How many jobs are we really going to get?
One quick follow-up so we can get to my colleagues behind me. There are auto industry members in the room today who say that the government has told Toyota previously that there is no more money on the table for deals. Now that we're standing here today with Honda, is the government willing to go back and sit with Toyota and make a new deal?
Well, thank you for this question. As you've heard, we've been talking to about all the auto manufacturers in the world. I think the Premier was saying we're one of the few jurisdictions which has all the manufacturers from American, European, and Japanese. As you would expect, we're talking to everyone with the framework we have put down with the investments tax.
Prochaine question. Bonjour, Yannick Lepage de Radio-Canada.
We know that critical minerals are essential for not just electric vehicles in the future, but for our innovative economies of the future all around the world. Right now, China controls a large part of the critical ingredients necessary into our net zero future. And countries around the world are looking to partners like Canada, strong, reliable partners that aren't just there to trade freely and not put conditions or use politically our economic advantages as other countries might, as we've seen disruptions in supply chains, but also the fact that Canada does things responsibly, that our mining sector is there to work in partnership Indigenous peoples. That is, making sure that labor standards and quality of life is upheld for the people who work in the mines. And, of course, make sure that environmental responsibility is part and parcel of our offering of cleaner products to the world. That's what people want around the world. That's what the consumer wants to know. That's where Canada has an opportunity to step up. And as we step up, absolutely, we're going to continue to ensure that the values that people know of Canada are fully represented in all the products we sell to the world.
Last question.
Thank you. Ilil Musa with CBC News. I've got a question for the Premier. Mining claims staked in Northern Ontario's Ring of Fire area have rose quite a bit in the last year. That region has been seen as being critical for Ontario's growing EV battery industry, but the surrounding First Nations say that they have not been properly consulted. Given today's announcement, where do things stand with those communities?
Well, actually, I'm going to have to disagree. We had great conversations with Aeroland, the chief of Aeroland. We're about that far away from signing a deal to get the first 80 kilometers of road, and we're going to keep working with the First Nations community. We have 2 First Nations communities doing the EA.
So just to be clear, no one's willing to answer the question specifically. How many jobs are being created, and what is the cost for the government deal?
If you're not going to listen to the answer of it saying 1,000 jobs created, then there's nothing we can do for you. If you're not going to listen to the answer of it saying 1,000 jobs created, then there's nothing we can do for you.
All right, guys, let's finish the story about an actual deal that would help Canada, help Canadians beyond any measure, the biggest deal of the century that's turned down by Trudeau. We're on the National Post, the first reading. Canada brushes off yet another country begging for the liquid natural gas. The Greece Prime Minister may not have come here simply to march in the Montreal parade. This was March 26th. For the third time in 18 months, a foreign head of government has made a rare visit to Canada with the stated intention of buying billions of dollars of natural gas. And for the third consecutive time, the official answer from the Trudeau government appears to be no. This time around, the visitor was Greece Prime Minister, who was the first Greek leader to come to Canada in more than 40 years. As per the office of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Mitsotakis was here on a goodwill visit to march in Montreal's Greek Independence Day parade, discuss shared interests, and cut the ribbon on purchase of Canadian-made firefighting planes. But it was during an interview of CTV that Mitsotakis said that his country would, of course, like to start importing Canadian natural gas. And here we go.
You talked about renewables and sources of energy, and I know that's been an especially pertinent discussion in Europe ever since Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the transition away from Russian gas. We've had other European leaders here in Canada say if it were more available to them, they would be interested in Canada's LNG, liquefied natural gas. Is that the same for you?
That's the same for Greece. We are a big entry point for LNG, not just for the Greek market, but also for the Balkans, for Eastern Europe. Theoretically, we could even supply Ukraine. We have a floating storage and regasification unit up in northern Greece, which is coming online. And of course, the point of this infrastructure is not just to serve the Greek market, but also to serve our neighbors towards the north. So in principle, yes, we are very interested in obtaining LNG at competitive prices. As fast as we go in terms of our renewable penetration, we will still need a reliable source of electricity. And for us, for Greece, we don't have nuclear. We've completely moving away from coal. So that leaves natural gas for the foreseeable future as a significant source of energy for the production of electricity.
Is Canada, given the current geopolitical status of things, an ideal partner in that, do you think? Could be an ideal partner?
Absolutely. And again, Canada is a country which we share, so many values. And again, as I pointed out at the beginning, the Greek-Canadian community serves as a natural.
So here you have the Prime Minister of Greece stating that we want Canada's liquid natural gas, not just for ourselves, but we are going to distribute it throughout Europe. We're talking about the biggest deal of the century. This would take Canada out of its debt. We could pay off $200 billion of our debt.
So we're cooperating with Canada on geopolitical issues, Ukraine, Gaza. I think we see eye to eye on many of the challenges that we face, and of course it is up to the liberal democracies of the West to ensure that we have a common front against the.
Continuing with the story, in Scholz's case, Trudeau said at a press conference with the German leader that there is no business case for LNG exports to Europe. And then he took the Chancellor to an empty field in Newfoundland that he said one day would be the site of a Canadian facility to export carbon-neutral hydrogen. So, a snubbed Germany instead signed a 15-year LNG export deal with the autocratic nation of Qatar. Canada is currently the world's 5th largest producer of natural gas, but as is the case with Canadian oil, there are extremely limited facilities that sell it overseas. There are no currently operating LNG export facilities in Canadian soil, meaning any Canadian LNG finding its way to Europe would need to be moved through a U.S. export terminal. So, quote, with massive natural gas reserves, Canada can no longer wait on the LNG sidelines. Burdened by an onerous regulatory system, our allies and trading partners need us. We must have a more LNG export facility approved and built. Read a statement Monday by Alberta Energy Minister Brian John. Now, let's finish with the broad sense of the whole topic, misinformed about carbon. And this all comes down to what is Trudeau's, whole goal about destroying Canada. There are many misinformed people concerning carbon and its associated costs to Canadians. The Liberal government will have you believe they're better off with a carbon tax. The parliamentary budget officer has stated when both fiscal and economic impacts of the federal fuel tax charge are considered, we estimate that most households will see a net loss. I think that quote settles the debate. We are worse off. British Columbians are especially affected by the provincial carbon tax. The maximum rebate you can receive is $466 per year if you earn less than $61,000. Most British Columbians will receive nothing. Secondly, the carbon tax directly impacts inflation. On November 19th, 2023, Castanet published an opinion column saying that BOC said eliminating the carbon tax would lead to a one-time drop of 0.6 percent points in the inflation rate. Most common sense people are aware of these points. For some reason, the Liberals and environmentalists are purposely spreading misinformation in an effort to confuse Canadians and push their agendas. Some may remember the acid rain issue Canada faced in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The solution was technology in the form of catalysts to remove the carbon monoxide that caused acid rain, and it worked great. Technology and adaptation is always the key to success. If Canada can displace 10% of Chinese coal with Canadian liquid natural gas, that will reduce emissions more than completely shutting down Canada. Not only that, we would make a lot of money in the process. Germany recently signed a $100 billion 15-year LNG deal with Qatar, while Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says there's no business case. Japan and Greece also want liquid natural gas from Canada. Trudeau basically tossed away $250 billion in revenue. It was the biggest business case in Canadian history, by the way. It's time for common sense to prevail. This is written by Matt Ernie Kelowna, guys. There you have it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, resubscribed when CensorTube describes you. Ernie Racing, over and out.